Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I love it. We are dancing to the music. It is a groovy little tune, right?
It is.
Randy Swaim here. Yes, bringing freedom to potential with coaching for relevance. This guy, pretty amazing. Leadership coach, a pilot, Marshall Goldsmith, certified executive coach. I mean, lots of accolades here. And of course, the founder of his own company. It's coaching for relevance. And that's also the website based out of Texas, but you are worldwide with your clients. Just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get started.
Well, I think you've pretty much answered all that.
I know.
All of that, plus my focus is I'm also recently, and I think you know this already, but I was just about 2 months ago, I was certified as a certified neuroplastician. So when you're talking about coaching, and particularly in a challenging environment, one of the things you have to be very aware of is how the brain works, really. And in fact, I know last week we were sort of talking about the dysfunctional way that a lot of people have been taught to do it in today's world. And unfortunately, research doesn't, speaks against that now. And so it's a very different approach. On last week's show, I'll just kind of highlight it very quickly. But you remember that the old school way of thinking about it from 4 or 5 decades ago was people tried to engender your emotions because they felt like that would give you whatever to really overcome something. Well, it doesn't very often. And if you look at, and this was actually, now last week I mentioned that this was brought out by a lady who is a certified professional counselor. And as she correctly said, that modern day research shows just the opposite. It's actually the other way. A lot of people think your emotions drive your brain, but it's actually the other way around. Your brain drives your emotions when you understand the neuroplasticity of it, and also the new research on it and everything. And we can kind of mention a couple of things on that now, but if you have somebody who's all they're doing is trying to generate your emotions, that's really more of a control freak than a real scientific and realistic approach to success. And so it's just sort of interesting from that when you understand how the brain works. And it's when the brain gets certain senses going and processes things, and it gets to the point where it starts releasing the chemicals of
the endorphins,
the endorphins and all that based on what it's sensing. It's the endorphins that drive your emotions and not the other way around. And it's actually opposite from what used to be. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are going just to what there used to be from decades ago, when that really is not applicable anymore. And you're disconnecting people if all you're trying to do is fire up their emotions, because emotions don't get you there. If your emotions get you a couple of steps in a certain direction, but then there's a lot of resistance to that, it can cause your emotions to just shut down immediately, almost. And a brain that has fully processed it can reach the radical success in those kind of situations very often. So it's a very different thing. It's something that is current and new, but it's very different from what a lot of people were used to from decades ago.
What else did you learn? This is interesting stuff. You're teaching me too.
Yeah. Well, and it truly is, because there's one of the things that neuroplasticity, particularly when you're talking about working, and we kind of talked about this some last week, but neuroplasticity, particularly if you're being involved in a an unpredictable, changing, not road academic scenario, guess what? Your brain has to process the solutions. If all you're doing is engendering your emotions, guess what? That's not, there's a sense where you're just trying to say, well, I'm just going to try to control this. Well, guess what? What if you can't?
Yeah.
How are you going to truly get your brain to process, to understand how you really get there? And that's kind of a lot of what we talked about last week. The modern day science, which is accurate, goes just the opposite way. It's not that your emotions engender your brain in activity. It's just the opposite. Your brain creates the picture, creates the process, and creates the situation, and that can in part engender your emotions on that. Because if your brain realizes that you need to fight for this, then guess what? You'll get there. And so it's just a lot of things like that. And what I was going to kind of bring today is just a collateral part that's sort of a follow on from that. And I'll just kind of throw this out just in general. And I can give a couple of examples of this, but I think I shared maybe one or two a year ago or a year and a half ago when you and I were on the show together, long time ago kind of thing. You may have heard me say it, but one of the questions I want to leave with the listeners today, and it's really a dovetail out of what we talked about last week, but then talk a little bit about this week. The kind of a thing I want to kind of leave with the listeners today is when you're talking about connecting with your team and leading your team, to what extent do you have clarity on when you're interacting with them in such a way that they can truly believe in you, in themselves, in the synergy of the team and the oneness of the team and the capability of the team, so that their brains together as a unit process it and see the amazing vision and strategy for reaching radical results. And you know what? A lot of times that happens without the emotions fired up. And so it's just something to think about. Or, when you talk about somebody, when you're leading your team, are you really, truly doing that? And I can give you a couple of examples. And even in tough situations, are you truly doing that?
Yeah.
Or is your interaction with your team in such a way that it's blocking that and it's shutting that down? When you look at that, what do you really want? And I know there was a couple of times, in fact, I think you know this, Jill, we're working on my autobiography, and that'll probably be completed and published probably this summer.
Wow.
And it's just, the some of my colleagues that are kind of, I'm the one writing it and stuff, but they're professional people, and they're kind of making some recommendations on just how I might tweak the communication and stuff like that, and all that kind of stuff, which is good. Well, it's always good to have people like that. And but I was chatting with my colleague this morning, and one of the things that we were coming up with was this. There was a situation, I think I may have shared it with you long time ago, but when as a pilot, not only was I an aviator in the Air Force, but I was also a pilot in Learjets, where we were a strategic air defense training contractor. So we flew Learjets, which was part of my dream, kind of thing. And but we did it as a bad guy force. So we would go out and act as the enemy, kind of thing, as a challenge to train and to keep proficiency in our strategic air defense forces. And there was this one day, and it was just kind of wild. It was one of my training events, which was actually in the airplane. And we were working with the USS Whidbey Island, which at that time was a Navy frigate that's about 120, 130 miles out in the ocean. And we go out there, and what they wanted us doing is pretending to be cruise missiles. So they wanted us at red line on the airplane, which was about, at that altitude, it was about 400 to 450 miles an hour kind of thing. And they wanted us under 35 feet. So if you think about it, 20 feet is about how high your ceiling is on your bedroom, kind of maybe thereabouts.
Wow.
So they wanted us under 35 feet as a challenge to them. And so we were down there, but we've all had days where we are just comfortable as all get out. And you know what? This was one of those days for me. And but there was one time where I think I let it even get down to like 20 feet above the water, the ocean and everything. And we're going fast, kind of thing. And the other pilot just kind of calmly leaned over and said, "I don't know about you," but he said, "I'm kind of scared down this low." I said, okay, as the leader there, I said, okay. And what I did is I easily climbed the airplane up 30 feet. So it went to 50 feet above the water, which was still low enough for what they were comfortable, and we would do the mission and everything. But as soon as I got to 50 feet, the guy said, okay, I'm better now. And you know what? But the key on that is, are you aware of times when members on your team are in a situation mentally where they can't clarify, they can't see clearly, they can't be part of the team, they can't process and function well. And what are you going to do about it? And the fact that I did that was a very simple thing, and I didn't hurt the mission at all, but very simple thing, but it made a difference for him. And it's just a lot of times like that where you have to understand that one little thing of taking it up about 25 to 30 feet made all the difference in the world. And then you look at it too, this can even come into play when you're having to perhaps discipline one of your teammates, because what if one of your teammates is causing a problem? A lot of people today just want to go in and point fingers and threaten them and say, you got to do this, I'm your boss, you got to do what I tell you. Guess what I did is I pulled them aside in a room and I sat down. I said, listen, this is disciplinary by nature. And I said, here's what you're doing. I want this to stop. And I said, because it's causing a problem. And we had a definitive conversation. It wasn't mean, cruel, or dictating. It was engaging. And you could tell he was a little bit surprised because of his normal background and everything and kind of thing. But he agreed to do what I said. And what was amazing is the next morning he came into my office and he knocked on the wall, and I said, hey, come on in. And he said, can I close the door? I said, you bet. And he looked at me and he said, is there any way we can not let what we talked about yesterday go to the headquarters of the company? And I looked at him and I said, I want you to understand, nobody outside of us knows that this happened. Mm-hmm. And he said, really? I said, yep. All I want this to be fixed. And what I noticed over the next, he was appreciative of that, I think, because I did what I needed to do, but it wasn't hateful. It was, I still included him as part of the team when I addressed it. And what I noticed over the next few weeks is he would sit there and he would go up to the other pilots and the other crew members with us, and he would ask them questions about stuff. And not about this, but he would just go up and he was interacting in a way that he had not before.
Wow.
But you know what? When you're talking about disciplining your people when you have to, how are you really doing that? What are you really coming across as? Are you interacting with them in a challenging time where, now, are there times if you got somebody that's just doing frickin' stupid stuff? Are there times where you got to get direct? Yeah, there might be. Mm-hmm. But you know what? How is your clarity on, if you have 5 people on your team and one person's the real problem and everybody else is kind of, kind of thing. And, to what extent are they misinterpreting something, or are they totally right and this person is really a problem? And how are you going to do that? And to make the team really sense themselves as one after the fact. And all of those come into play with this whole aspect of the neuroscience and the brain and the, how can you interact even in a tough moment? How can you interact where the team still feels a sense of oxytocin, which helps them sense that it's a social oneness between them, as opposed to causing a division or something. And so all of these are sort of aspects of that, part of it, that when you're talking about those challenging moments in your team, how are you going to do it? And as a leader, how is your clarity on how you do that well or not? And what do you need to do different on it? What do you need to envision different? And what do you need to process to have a sense of how you need to engage it differently? It's one thing to say, you know what, you're just an idiot. Why are you even on the team? And I'm being a little bit stupid with that, obviously.
I know.
But it's a whole other thing to sit there and say, you know what, you're on the team. What's holding you back?
Yeah.
Why are you getting in the way on this? What can you do about it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and come across very different. And so it's when you talk about this aspect of the neuroscience aspect, rather than just trying to engender emotions or whatever, are you interacting with your team, even in challenging moments with them, which, let's face it, they come up sometimes. To what extent are you doing that effectively? To what extent do you have clarity in your vision of it as to how you're going to interact with the team, so that at the end of the situation, you're all still a synergistic team? And all of those are very interesting when you're looking at this whole aspect of the neuroscience aspect of it. And I was just thinking about that because, like I said, we're going through I wrote like 200 pages on my autobiography. And so what we're doing is just going through each page and kind of looking at if they had any questions, if they were reading it, kind of thing and stuff like that. So, but these are things that sometimes we don't think about when you're talking about a leader. You're not talking about somebody who just wants to engender your emotions to get you to capitulate to them and all this sort of stuff. That's not being a leader. Leader is deeper than that, and it's more aware than that. And it's really this aspect of being able to bring vision to reality, really, in your team, and in a way that you can reach those radical results. And so that at the end of it, everybody's going, wow, we did this. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's not just you telling people what to do. It's creating that oneness, that synergy, that belief, where people step forward, and instead of just engendering the emotions and saying, well, let's go do this, and then failing, kind of thing, but they have clarity on, here's the factors that are involved. You know what? We can do this. We can do this. We're together. Hey, you watch for this. I'll watch for this. Okay. And let's stay in touch, kind of thing, and all that. And where there really oneness on it. So it's just something to think about when it's sort of a follow-on to that thing about the neuroscience we were talking about last week. And one of the things I'm going to be doing, I've shared this last week, but on June 21st, I'm going to be hosting a roundtable event that's talking about how neuroscience and this awareness of the brain and how it works, and how you need to lead maybe just a little bit differently, how that neuroscience awareness has to be very deliberate and critical in an unpredictable and challenging environment or scenario. And so it's these are just some pictures of that a lot of people don't understand. It's not rotely academic, that's for sure.
Wow, you are congrats
well, thank you.
That. Oh my God. But even just, all you've accomplished. Oh my goodness. For someone like you who's, we talk about, we have goals. Everyone has goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about the climb, literally. You're pulling up on that yoke, but it's all about the climb, right? Once you get there, you are. You've been there. No, yeah, you want more up again. Yep. You're gonna go. You up Air Force. This. You just go. Look at you, and now back to school to do. And what's next for you? I'm so proud of you. You're such an overachiever, and you're just probably modest and whatever, but you clearly are passionate about life, learning.
Well, I am amazed at when I look back through my journey. A lot of people have this vision of, oh, well, I wanted this, so I made this happen, and all. That's not me. I'm amazed that my dream is met. I know what it's like to live your dream because I've done that. But it isn't that I just said, hey, I'm just going to go out and make this happen. So much of what I've learned and what I've become has been through my journey and my awareness of it, and my processing of even sometimes the things that I should have done better or could have done better or made some mistakes along the way, kind of thing, that to process that and go, okay, here's what I learned from that. Okay, you know what? That's right. That applies with this situation up here and becoming a leader and all of that. But I've also, because of some of the things that I did, as I kind of shared with you on the show, I think a long time ago. You remember I was the Outstanding Graduate Award winner at F4 qualification training. And because of that, and I didn't even realize it, but I was hand selected to go into one of the top squadrons in the Air Force. And General Richard B. Myers was he was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2001 to 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my squadron commander for most of the time that I was there. And I tell people that he is the finest leader I've ever seen and worked with. And the reason is not because of anything he told me, but you would be amazed at all I learned just from seeing him interact, seeing how he leads, observing, processing what I observed.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what, it's made a huge difference. So it isn't about things I necessarily accomplish. Yeah, I mean, I accomplished some things, but the big thing on it is who I became through my struggles and through my awareness and how I grew through my journey and all that. And that's what a lot of people, as a leader, that's what you want to do for your people too, because your people, if they become something awesome that's way better than they would have ever imagined, guess what?
Wow.
Your company's better because they may be promoted to a higher position and make radical results in a bigger role in the company or whatever. So, I mean, it's not just about the short range little picture. It's much bigger than that. And it's about the journey and who your people are becoming and what do they experience in you? Like I said, with General Myers, I'll tell you, it's nothing about what he told me, but it was all about, what I observed from him, how he interacted, what I saw in the reaction of the squadron members and in myself, kind of thing. And that is huge. And you know what? That is being a leader. And that's so yeah, it's just but this whole aspect of the neuroscience and how that, taking it one step further for the people that are listening, to what extent are you really handling those situations in your team effectively? And at what point are you shortcutting it or putting a roadblock in it or whatever? And so it's just something to understand that this aspect is just key in leaders today.
Wow.
So it's amazing if you think about it. And it's way bigger than just somebody like you were kind of implied with a lot of people that, yeah, I want to do this and then I want to do that. Yeah, that's true. When I got out of college, I had this vision of I just wanted to fly the F4 and I wanted to fly a Learjet, kind of thing. But, and I did that. But when I realized what I developed and what I became and my awareness that I had because of the people that I worked with throughout that journey, that was way bigger than just living my dream. And so, you mentioned this thing, kind of what we're doing now and all that kind of stuff. And I've shared this before, but I've had a lot of people ask me, when are you going to retire? And I look at them square in the face and I go, when I take my last breath, because you know what I want is to run through the tape, not for my own credit, but I want to leave an impact. I want to leave a watermark for people that were around me. And with the autobiography coming out and the movie documentary and all that coming out, that seems to be a lot bigger than I would have ever dreamed. And if it does, that's what I want. Even if people don't remember my name, if the story made a difference in them.
I think they will.
Well, I hope so. I wouldn't be upset at that,
Aw.
but that's key when you're talking about leadership.
Yeah.
It's not just about you. It's not just about doing this today and me pointing fingers and all that. It's way bigger than that. And I'll tell you, if you do it right as a real leader, your people are going to reach radical results that almost make you go, "Oh, wow."
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here, for joining us, and remind us how we can reach you, please. Thank you.
Okay. It's Randy Swaim, coachingforrelevance.com is my website. And they can, if you go down to the bottom of the homepage, you can see my cell phone and my email. By the way, as you know, I don't do sales pitches. So, I mean, if somebody calls me and they have a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But I don't. I build relationships. You're not going to get cold calls, sales calls from me or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that. But I just build relationships. I try to connect with people.
Got it. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure having you here. Looking forward to the next time we connect again, Randy. Really.
Well, I'll tell you what, and it's always a pleasure working with you. So we're looking forward to it on this side as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Seriously, my friend from afar. Well, not too far. You're in Texas, but like really, like I feel like I know you very well at this point. And one day I really would hope that we could meet in person and maybe I'll come to Texas. But one day our paths will cross. Not that we're going anywhere now, but I'm just saying, like, I really appreciate you and I really like you. Thank you.
And I'll tell you what, it's an honor with you. And if we ever do get a chance to just have a cup of coffee and talk, I welcome it. So yeah, you have a great one.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to being on with you again.
Same here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.